In 1820, Washington Irving released a story that reshaped American Gothic folklore forever. The legend of Sleepy Hollow was more than a simple ghost tale. It blended European myth, Revolutionary War history, and a quiet New York valley that already carried whispers of something otherworldly. Irving wrote it while living abroad in England, drawing heavily from local Dutch-American legends and early American superstitions. The result was a story that lingered like a cold breath on the back of the neck. Generations later, Tim Burton took this haunting foundation and rebuilt it into a grand cinematic dream filled with fog, superstition, and a world so carefully crafted it felt like a living illustration. Burton wanted the film to feel like the pages of a nightmare that had been waiting centuries to be opened. He kept the heart of Irving's myth, but transformed Ichabod into a rational investigator battling an irrational world. Every scene was shaped to honor the spirit of Irving's tale while elevating it with romance, mystery, supernatural elements, and a visual style that only Burton could bring to life. With sweeping sets, handcrafted villages, and a devotion to atmosphere, Sleepy Hollow became a modern Gothic classic. Now let us step into the mist and follow the horseman through the trees as we uncover 25 of the strangest and most fascinating stories behind Tim Burton's haunting masterpiece. Fact 1. The town of Sleepy Hollow was built entirely from scratch. The production team could not find a real American town that matched Tim Burton's eerie vision, so they built an entire 18th century village on an estate in Buckinghamshire, England. Houses, farms, and the churchyard were constructed as full structures, not facades, so the camera could move freely without revealing anything modern. A strange fact is that the streets were made intentionally narrow to create a closed-in, claustrophobic feeling. Fog machines ran constantly, sometimes so heavily that actors had to pause until they could see their marks. This practical design gave the film its dense, atmospheric texture. Fact 2. The Headless Horseman was played by 2 actors. Christopher Walken only appeared as the Hessian in his human form. The headless version was performed by Ray Park, who had just played Darth Maul in Star Wars Episode 1. His martial arts background helped shape the horseman's sharp, aggressive movement. The odd detail is that Park filmed several scenes with a broken finger he kept secret. He feared being replaced and wanted the physicality of the horseman to stay consistent, so he taped it and kept working through the pain.
There's a town upstate, 2 days' journey to the north in the Hudson.
Fact 3. Johnny Depp wanted Ichabod to look more like Irving's original character. In Washington Irving's story, Ichabod Crane is tall, thin, and noticeably odd-looking, with a long nose, large ears, and an exaggeratedly lanky frame. Johnny Depp wanted to honor that description. He even suggested using prosthetics to reshape his nose and ears so that the character would look closer to the book. Tim Burton and the studio decided against the idea. They felt the film's version of Ichabod should be eccentric because of his personality and nervous mannerisms, rather than his appearance. Depp still added subtle quirks and gestures, but the extreme prosthetics never made it into the final film. Fact 4. Washington Irving helped create America's first great ghost legend. Irving did not invent the Headless Rider, but he gave it an American identity. His version tied the ghost to a Hessian soldier decapitated during the Revolutionary War, blending history with European folklore. A strange fact is that Irving based much of the atmosphere on real Dutch-American stories he heard growing up. Sleepy Hollow was already rumored to be haunted, and he turned those local superstitions into a legend that became part of American culture. Fact 5. The windmill scene was Burton's tribute to classic horror. The burning windmill was not part of Washington Irving's original story. Tim Burton added it as a tribute to classic Gothic cinema, drawing inspiration from both the Universal Frankenstein of 1931 and the Hammer film The Brides of Dracula from 1960. He wanted a dramatic set piece that felt larger than life, something that honored the old monster movies he grew up watching. A strange detail is that the windmill had to be built twice. A full-scale version stood on an estate in Oxfordshire for the exterior shots, while a second mill was constructed on a soundstage with rotating gears and collapse points designed for safe stunt work. The combination of practical sets, fire effects, and old Hollywood influences turned the windmill sequence into one of the film's most memorable moments. Fact 6. The entire film was shot in the United Kingdom. Although Sleepy Hollow is a deeply American story, almost the entire movie was filmed in the United Kingdom. Leavesden Studios and Shepperton Studios became the production's home because Burton wanted full control over the environment, weather, and lighting. Shooting on location in the United States would have meant unpredictable conditions, modern intrusions, and landscapes that did not match the eerie world he imagined. England offered the exact kind of misty forests and overcast skies that helped the film feel timeless and unsettling. A strange fact is that one of the main reasons for filming in England was the availability of large studio spaces recently vacated by Star Wars Episode I. The Sleepy Hollow team moved in almost immediately after that production wrapped. Several crew members even joked that they kept finding leftover set pieces, cables, and props from the galaxy far away. Fact 7. Johnny Depp adopted his horse, Goldeneye. Johnny Depp developed a close bond with Goldeneye, the horse that played Ichabod's loyal companion, Gunpowder. The animal was known for being expressive and unexpectedly calm on set, a rare combination for such an intense shooting environment. Depp worked with Goldeneye daily and eventually chose to adopt him once production ended. A gentle detail is that staff members said Depp spent time brushing and feeding the horse between scenes. Goldeneye would often walk toward him on breaks, even when surrounded by crew. Many fans never knew the friendship was real, not just movie magic. Fact 8. Christina Ricci and Johnny Depp had met years earlier. Christina Ricci and Johnny Depp had known each other long before Sleepy Hollow. They first met on the set of Mermaids in 1990 when Ricci was just a child and Depp was dating her co-star Winona Ryder. By the time they reunited for Sleepy Hollow, she was an established actress, and Depp remembered her from those early days. The interesting part is that Ricci has said working with Depp felt strangely full circle. Their scenes together have a soft, nostalgic tone, which may partially come from that long-standing familiarity. Burton noticed this dynamic and leaned into it for their quieter moments. Fact 9. Christopher Walken's teeth became a key part of his transformation. To create the Hessian's feral, almost demonic appearance, Christopher Walken wore a set of sharp, metallic-looking prosthetic teeth. They were uncomfortable and made speaking difficult, but Burton felt they gave Walken exactly the menacing edge the character needed. Makeup artists created several backup sets because the teeth were fragile during action scenes. Crew members often said that when Walken stared at them with the glowing contacts and those sharp teeth, it was unsettling, even off camera. Fact 10. Lisa Marie's role was written specifically for Burton's vision. Lisa Marie, Burton's partner at the time, played Ichabod's mother in the film's dreamlike flashbacks. Her scenes were crafted to feel ethereal, almost like paintings from a storybook. Burton believed she had a natural, haunting presence that fit the mystery surrounding Ichabod's past. A softer detail is that her costumes and lighting were intentionally brighter than the rest of the film. Burton wanted Ichabod's memories of his mother to feel warm and otherworldly, a stark contrast to the cold forests and gray skies of Sleepy Hollow's present time. Fact 11. Ray Park performed the most dangerous horseman stunts. Christopher Walken provided the terrifying face of the Hessian, but the headless version required a performer with precision, strength, and martial arts training. Ray Park, fresh off his role as Darth Maul, stepped in to bring the horseman to life. His athletic background gave the character a sharp, calculated movement style that made the ghost feel both elegant and violent. Park's ability to move tightly in heavy costumes helped keep the horseman's presence authentic. A strange detail is that Park performed many sequences with the broken finger that he'd hid from the stunt coordinator. He worried they might replace him for safety reasons, so he taped it and kept going. His commitment is part of why the horseman feels so vivid and consistent across the entire film. Fact 12. The film's score earned major recognition. Danny Elfman's score is one of the most defining elements of Sleepy Hollow. He blended choir, orchestral swells, and sharp percussive patterns to create music that felt both ancient and supernatural. The soundtrack earned a Golden Satellite Award and received special additional nominations. Many critics praised it for capturing a sense of dread without overwhelming the quieter, emotional moments. A fun detail is that Elfman often referred to the score as Burton's fog, because he wanted the music to feel like it drifted through the film rather than punctuated it. Several scenes were scored before the final edit, and Burton adjusted pacing to match the music instead of the other way around. Fact 13. The horseman's eyes were designed to glow like embers. Christopher Walken's brief but unforgettable appearance as the Hessian was enhanced by a disturbing set of contact lenses. These lenses were thick, uncomfortable, and bright enough that Walken said he felt like he was looking through colored glass. They gave his eyes an unsettling, supernatural glow that made the character feel both inhuman and ancient. The odd part is that Walken's natural intensity made the glowing contacts even more effective. Crew members said that when he stared at them between takes, it felt like he was still in character. Burton insisted the contacts remain in as long as possible to maintain that energy during filming. Fact 14. The film's visual style was influenced by German Expressionism. Tim Burton drew heavily from German Expressionist silent films from the early 20th century. These movies used dramatic shadows, twisted architecture, and heightened theatricality to create emotional storytelling. Sleepy Hollow's fog-drenched forests, crooked trees, and harsh lighting patterns were all modern interpretations of this iconic style. A fascinating detail is that Burton encouraged the costume and set design teams to avoid perfectly straight lines. Even furniture, candles, and door frames were given slight bends or curves to make the world feel subtly dreamlike, almost as if the landscape itself was alive and watching. Fact 15. The script went through major changes before Burton signed on. The original screenplay for Sleepy Hollow was designed as a gritty slasher-style film with modern pacing and a far more violent tone. Several early drafts leaned heavily into action sequences rather than Gothic mystery. When Burton joined the project, he completely reshaped the concept to reflect the atmosphere of the Washington Irving story and added elements of romance, humor, and folklore. A curious detail is that Burton asked for Ichabod to become a rational investigator instead of a simple schoolteacher because he wanted the character to clash naturally with the supernatural world. This choice shifted the entire direction of the film and helped create the version audiences now consider a Gothic classic. Fact 16. The credits contain hidden story clues. Most movie credits simply list names, but Burton treated Sleepy Hollow's opening like the beginning of a mystery. The credits glide across images of an old man's written will, wax seals, and personal documents that hint at the conspiracy at the center of the story. It quietly establishes themes of inheritance, secrets, and power long before Ichabod arrives in town. Burton believed audiences should feel the story taking shape even before the first line of dialogue. A subtle detail is that the opening credits were filmed practically, not digitally. Real parchment, aged ink, and custom props were created for this sequence. The team even used authentic quills and wax stamps to maintain historical accuracy. It helped ground the supernatural elements in a very physical world. Fact 17. Burton wanted suspense over jump scares. Even though Sleepy Hollow features decapitations and supernatural violence, Burton never intended it to be a jump scare-driven horror film. He aimed for a slow burn atmosphere filled with dread, mystery, and theatrical staging. Instead of sudden shocks, he used silhouettes, fog, and carefully timed footsteps to make viewers uneasy. The intention was to create a feeling of being watched by something ancient, rather than startled by loud noises. An interesting detail is that Burton studied older Gothic films and classic ghost stories for pacing inspiration. He admired how these films built tension through suggestion rather than spectacle. That approach is why Sleepy Hollow still feels elegant and artistic despite its darker moments. Fact 18. The windmill sequence was one of Burton's most complex homages to classic horror. Tim Burton grew up watching late-night Hammer horror films, and the windmill chase became his chance to recreate the kind of dramatic Gothic spectacle those movies were known for. The flames, spinning gears, and stark silhouettes were designed to mirror the painterly, theatrical look of Hammer films, where fire and shadow often revealed more than they hid. It was Burton's way of placing Ichabod inside a heightened fairy tale world where every moment felt mythic. What sets this scene apart is just how technically demanding it was. Coordinating the fire effects, the moving gears, and the horseman's stunt work required dozens of rehearsals. Even with 2 separate windmill builds, the team had to choreograph every collapse point and flame path to keep actors safe while maintaining Burton's sweeping visual style. The result is one of the film's most striking sequences, blending practical effects, Gothic drama, and old Hollywood craftsmanship in a single moment. Fact 19. The Headless Horseman has roots in medieval folklore. The idea of a headless rider hunting the living is far older than the American story. Celtic, German, and Dutch myths all contain versions of a decapitated warrior or ghost who roams the night. Irving was familiar with these legends and blended them into his tale. When he introduced the Hessian soldier into the American landscape, he created a version of the horseman that resonated with early American fears of war and supernatural punishment. A compelling detail is that Irving's version is now the most widely recognized interpretation worldwide. Many modern depictions of headless riders in film, television, and literature trace back to this short story, not the much older European variants. His influence shaped one of the most recognizable figures in Gothic storytelling. Fact 20. The film's desaturated look came from a silver retention process. Sleepy Hollow's cold, engraved look was achieved through a specialized film printing technique called CCE, or Color Contrast Enhancement. This process is a form of silver retention that works similarly to bleach bypass. It drains saturation, boosts contrast, and gives the image that stark, metallic tone that makes the movie feel like an 18th century illustration more than a traditional period drama. To strengthen the effect, Burton and cinematographer Emanuel Lubezki layered constant smoke through the sets to soften edges and diffuse the lighting. The production design team supported the look with a nearly monochromatic palette, even adjusting fake blood to a more orange tone so it would register properly after the CCE process. Combined with the controlled lighting of indoor sound stages, these choices created the icy, atmospheric world that defines the film's visual identity. Fact 21. Industrial Light and Magic handled the supernatural effects. Many viewers assume most of Sleepy Hollow's effects were practical, but one of the biggest contributors to the film's visual magic was Industrial Light and Magic. ILM created the headless sequences, the spectral movement of the horseman, and the eerie transitions between human and supernatural forms. The team blended practical stunt work with digital removal techniques that were considered advanced for the late 90s. A fun detail is that ILM intentionally avoided overly smooth CGI. Burton asked them to keep a slight roughness to the visuals so the ghostly elements would feel like illustrations come to life, not polished digital characters. This choice helped preserve the timeless storybook quality that defines the film. Fact 22. The film was designed to look like a moving engraving. Sleepy Hollow's visual style went beyond drained color. Tim Burton and cinematographer Emanuel Lubezki wanted the movie to resemble an 18th century engraving come to life. The sets were painted in muted tones. Fabrics were aged to look gray and worn, and fog was layered heavily so the world would appear soft around the edges, almost like ink bleeding on paper. Costume designer Colleen Atwood even chose fabrics with low reflectivity so characters blended naturally into the fog. This engraving-inspired approach helped create the film's cold, storybook quality, making every frame look like an illustration pulled from a Gothic novel. Fact 23. The sky was controlled through sound stages, not backdrops. Sleepy Hollow's overcast sky wasn't created with outdoor backdrops. Instead, Burton placed almost all exterior scenes on massive indoor sound stages, where lighting, fog, and weather could be completely controlled. This allowed the team to maintain the same dim, gray atmosphere throughout the entire film without worrying about sunlight or weather changes. By combining these controlled environments with the bleach bypass processing done later, the team achieved a world that felt sealed off from reality. The sky, the fog, and even the tree lines were crafted by hand, giving the film its eerie, self-contained feeling. Fact 24. The film sparked controversy over its violence. When Sleepy Hollow was released in 1999, some critics argued that the stylized decapitations and blood effects were too extreme for a mainstream studio film. Burton defended the artistic choices, explaining that the violence was theatrical, not realistic. He compared it to classic horror films where exaggeration created a sense of dark fantasy rather than shock value. The interesting part is that test screenings showed audiences were more amused than disturbed. Many viewers described the violence as almost operatic. The mixture of humor, fear, and theatricality made the gore feel surreal instead of sensational. Fact 25. Sleepy Hollow was a major box office success. Released on November 19, 1999, Sleepy Hollow earned over $206 million worldwide. It performed especially well in both the United States and international markets thanks to its star power and Burton's fan base. The film quickly became one of the director's biggest financial successes of the decade. A cool detail is that despite criticism from a few reviewers, the movie still holds a strong audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics praised its style, visual world building, and performances, even if some debated the tone. Over time, the film has become a celebrated example of modern Gothic cinema. Sleepy Hollow closed out the 90s with a powerful box office run and a reputation that only grew stronger over time. But the story behind its legacy does not end with production secrets or on-set mysteries. There is one more piece to this tale, a final detail that shows just how deeply this Gothic world left its mark on audiences and critics alike. Now let's step into the last shadow of the story with one more haunting bonus fact. Bonus fact: Sleepy Hollow became a Gothic classic despite divided critics. When Sleepy Hollow hit theaters in November 1999, critics were unsure what to make of it. Some praised the film's visual brilliance and atmospheric world building, while others felt the stylized violence pushed boundaries. On Rotten Tomatoes, it settled in the 60% range with critics, but scored much higher with audiences. Fans embraced its dreamlike world, haunting imagery, and classic Burton charm. At the box office, the film was a major win. It earned more than $206 million worldwide, with nearly $100 million coming from international markets alone. This success placed it among Burton's top-performing films of the decade and solidified its place as a modern Gothic favorite. Over time, appreciation for the movie has only grown. Many viewers consider it one of the most visually striking horror fantasy films of the 90s, proving that audience taste often outlasts early reviews. In a world where most horror films chase cheap thrills, Sleepy Hollow stands apart. It is a dream carved from shadows and superstition, a place where the past refuses to stay buried, and every whisper of wind feels like a warning. Washington Irving gave us the first spark with his legendary tale, but Tim Burton transformed it into something deeper, richer, and strangely beautiful. Every detail from the hand-built village to the glowing Hessian eyes was crafted with purpose, honoring the original story while creating a new legend all its own. As we step out of the fog and leave the haunted forest behind, it is clear why Sleepy Hollow endures. It is a film that reminds us that fear can be elegant, that darkness can be art, and that some stories follow us long after the screen fades to black. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Tim Burton's eerie masterpiece. If you enjoyed exploring these hidden stories and strange production secrets, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the most intriguing films ever made. Now slip quietly from the woods. The horseman rides again soon.